Good evening. Welcome to the Parks and Recreation Commission meeting on Tuesday, February 3rd, 5:30 p.m. And may I have a roll call, please?
Chairperson Long.
Here.
Vice Chair Keever.
Here.
Commissioner Adams.
Here.
Commissioner Bagwell.
Here.
Commissioner Casiopo.
Here.
Commissioner Coburn. Commissioner Curtis.
Here.
Commissioner Glenn.
Here.
Commissioner Lemon. A quorum's present.
So thank you for coming to the meeting tonight. And I guess first to start it off, is there any public comments? Any members of the public that want to come forward and have any random comments? That's a no. For possible action of approval of minutes, minutes from, would have been from January. Does anybody have any comments or suggestions, or anybody that wants to approve the minutes?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I'll move to approve the minutes.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? No nays. Okay. Item number 3, actually modifications to the agenda. Is there any proposed modifications?
No modifications from staff.
Okay. And there will be a couple members, Commissioner Bagwell and Commissioner Casiopo will be leaving early tonight. So I think we'll still have a quorum, so we should be good. But if for whatever reason somebody else leaves, we can still do the discussion items, and I think we'll be through any of the action items before then anyway. So moving along to item 3A, for possible action to recommend to the Board of Supervisors a guaranteed maximum price for the construction of the multi-use athletic center, which is also known as the MAC, as presented by Miles Construction.
All right, well, thank you very much. I handed out to you as late material because this really came in, this is late breaking news, came in right at the wire. What we received the final numbers this morning, or was it yesterday? Yesterday morning, yeah. And so I am pleased to announce that I can say something I haven't been able to say for 9 years. We have a project. We have a project on the MAC. We have a guaranteed price from Miles Construction. The spreadsheet I gave you that's in front of you for total cost of the project is $8,315,042.27. So pretty close budgeting there, Bill, down to the 27 cents. And we have available funding of $8,321,467. So it seems like a very small cushion of about $6,000 over an $8.3 million project. However, given the fact that we're employing the CMAR process, and Miles Construction's already conducted a bid opening with all their subs, we feel pretty good and pretty confident about their estimate and their guaranteed price. And in addition to that, I know that there is albeit small contingency built into the price under the estimate too. Is that correct?
Right. Yeah, yes, it is, Roger. So Bill Miles Construction, and right now we're carrying it $200,000.
If you could turn on the mic.
Oops. Sorry, Bill. Is that on? Yeah. Test. Bill Miles Construction. So currently, we are carrying a contingency of $200,000. This is an open book. If we don't use that money, that will be returned to the owner, or we can use it at your discretion if we do not need it.
Good. And talk to Jim Morris. Jim Morris is over here next to Bill Miles. He's with the Public Works Department. He informed me that we're still on schedule to have a groundbreaking this March. Yes. So that's good news as well. I should note that in the effort to get to the price and to secure the budget, if you look down under the second box there, at the bottom, that includes our available money, our funding, and we're committing $240,000 fiscal year 16 towards this project from Quality of Life Capital. And that's really not unusual in terms that we have usually annually we add to the project through the available money through question 18. So, but this is going to be about $204,000 that's projected as undesignated money or money to be distributed within the Quality of Life Fund, and about $36,000 of undesignated money in the current fiscal year. So we have, again, a project estimate, guaranteed price of a little over $8.3 million, and we have a total revenue of $8,321,467. So I'd like to thank basically, Miles Construction, Bill and his company, and Public Works Department for all their hard work putting this estimate together and working on this project. Jim has done a great job for us. Rick was working on the project earlier. Darren Schultz and Danny Roder have all worked really hard from the Public Works Department. Of course, Bill and Stacy and all of his folks as well, so thank you very much. If you have any questions, and Jim and Bill are here to answer questions that I may not be able to answer.
Does anybody have any questions? I guess, first off, I'm excited to see some movement. And so I haven't even been on the Parks and Rec that long, but it seems like a long time to me. And to the others, we're looking at going on 15 years or something now since the original idea. So I'm glad it's actually moving along. Does anybody have any comments? Commissioner Bagwell.
Hi. So I just want to clarify on this project. What you're indicating is there's only $36,000 that was in undesignated. So the project came in on budget except for $36,000. That's all we're going to have to deal with in 2016 is finding $36,000.
Well, no, we think we've already found the money.
Okay.
The $36,000 I was referring to is in undesignated projects in the current fiscal year.
Not in 16?
No, not in 16.
Oh, okay, because it says
That
16.
should really be 204, but
Okay.
they just lumped it all together because it's all quality of life funding.
And you're saying the $36,000 is currently available in undesignated line?
Approximately
Great.
36,000, yes.
Great, good job. Okay.
Commissioner Curtis.
Yeah, okay, so we're obligating, I guess, with this action, $240,000 that we hope will be coming in to question 18. Does that pretty much take the beginning balance, or is there going to be any other money? Do you know?
Well, we have, I don't have the quality of life budget in front of me. We do have some small projects budgeted. I think we have some leftover money. I don't think we have any actually leftover money in Centennial Park, do we? So it's all used up. Really, we will be pretty much, every cent in quality of life will be designated. So, but you'll be happy to hear that it does include the suspended walking track in the project. And I think, I can speak for the staff that I think we're pretty confident that we are going to probably finish this project before the completion of the Ormsby House and the and the I-580 freeway. So, and I haven't been confident enough to say that before, but.
Commissioner Casiopo.
Bill, how are you? Good, sir. I was just curious, given that it's a pretty tight budget and the contingency is helpful, but it's still pretty tight, are there any areas, kind of broad scale, that jump out at you that are concerns that you're going to want to watch a little more closely than others?
No, there isn't really, Joe.
Pretty straightforward.
We vetted this real well. We had a decent coverage of subcontractors. We had a challenge on one of the items in particular, but we got that resolved. There's still some potential VE on our side on a few items to work out with the city if they might want to take it. And no, we're very comfortable with this budget.
Okay, thanks.
I was curious, so based on the design in general, the walking track, obviously, is there any other design, any minor, I guess, or major design changes that we went through in order to arrive at the budget?
Really not a whole lot. I know that we changed the materials on the lockers in the locker room. I think they were kind of that composite or plastic lockers originally. We went to steel lockers, which is actually okay in this application because it's a dry locker room. It's not in a wet environment. We still have the hardwood floor. it's pretty much, the building's pretty much intact now. We made some reductions in some landscaping. We discussed that fairly thoroughly, that we wanted to make sure that we didn't make enough reductions in landscaping that it wouldn't meet the city permit process, and we feel confident that we are going to be able to still meet their standards. Jim, can you think of any other places where we've kind of made changes that are going to be really apparent to the public?
No, mainly it was some cosmetic items that we reduced. We went with a thinner gauge metal on the architectural feature on the exterior of the building, which no one will ever notice because it's suspended and you're not going to be hitting it or using it. So, and that was a substantial savings to the project, so, no.
What about the parking lot? Is the parking lot itself going to be finished around? I think at one point we were talking about potentially some cost savings there.
At one time, we had discussed the possibility of eliminating the parking lot on the south side of the building, or, making it, not paving it and having it as kind of spillover parking, but we're already underparked, and we're using the calculations of the parking lot for the Boys and Girls Club to have adequate parking, so we didn't make any reductions there.
The other thing, you mentioned the 200,000 contingency. If whatever money doesn't get used gets returned, does that just go right back into the quality of life, the Parks and Rec Question 18 fund, or where does that money go?
No, that'll go back into the quality of life fund.
Any other questions?
Ready to make a motion if it doesn't have any more questions.
All right, you want to give it a go?
Sure.
Other public comment?
Do we have any public comments? Okay. Commissioner Adams.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion, mostly because I'm afraid if any more discussion goes on, the numbers will change, and we'll be talking about this in 2 more years. Recommended action. I move to recommend to the Board of Supervisors a guaranteed maximum price for the construction of the multi-use center as presented by Miles Construction.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Nay? No nays. All right. Well, thank you very much, and we look forward to breaking ground. What just at a couple months here, right?
Hopefully we have a Christmas party there.
Yeah.
So, Bill, were negotiations that tough, or did something else happen to your arm there?
Something else happened.
He could have had a good story.
That's right.
Okay, moving along to item 3B for possible action to approve and recommend the city staff submit a Parks and Recreation Commission report of their year-long review of the Parks and Recreation Commission Parks and Recreation Master Plan to the Planning Commission and Board of Supervisors. That's with Roger and Vern.
I'll kick this off. Just kind of going briefly through the staff report. On March 4th, 2014, the Parks and Recreation Commission began an extensive review of the Parks and Recreation Master Plan adopted by the Board of Supervisors on April 6th, 2006. This chapter-by-chapter review provided the public and the Commission with the opportunity to decide if the master plan was still viable and a relevant planning document. The master plan review continued through the year at 7 Commission meetings, averaging approximately an hour at each meeting for this agenda item. The Commission completed its final chapter reviews of the master plan on November 5th, 2014. Staff has returned to the Commission with a draft Parks and Recreation Commission, or a draft Parks and Recreation Master Plan report for the Commission to review that is in your packet. If the Commission approves this report, the report will be forwarded to the Planning Commission and Board of Supervisors for their information and review. And as we tidy this document up for sending out, staff reserves the right for a few format changes and editorial changes just in case we find some misspellings or some other odds and ends that show up. Having said all that, in your packet, there is a 5-page report, including the appendix. In the appendix, you have all the minutes from each of those 7 meetings that we were at, with the appropriate motions and comments that were provided by the recording secretary. And with that, I'm assuming that everyone has had the opportunity to read the report and would take any questions at this time.
Okay, thank you. I guess, just to start off, I'll start off with a couple of my comments, I guess. So one of the things is, as this is kind of a report, it's a little bit just kind of a summary of a snapshot in time of what we discussed regarding the master plan. I know there are several references, I guess we can call it the Great Recession, and had many kind of several comments or kind of explanations. And Vern, no, not to be overcritical, but I thought maybe some of those maybe kind of strayed a little bit from what the really master plan or kind of what the summary really was intended to do. So I would recommend maybe removing some of those. But I don't know, I think it's worth maybe just to hear other people's thoughts as well. But that was kind of probably the biggest sentiment that I had out of it was that the material was good, the timeline and kind of the overview of each of those like 7 months was good. It just seemed a little bit redundant in the sense of whether the recession was happened or whether it didn't happen. Really, I didn't think should necessarily have much of an impact on the actual report. But
May I?
yeah, Commissioner Curtis.
Actually, I echo your sentiments. I read this more as a budget request in a sense. You're certainly making a case for the fact that a lot's been going on. Well, actually, you didn't make that case. What you made was the case that we went through the master plan, and pretty much the trends and everything is pretty much the same. There isn't really anything that we found that stood out, and I'm not sure if that's exactly the case. But yes, there was a lot of reference to the fact that, you know, we lost this staff and that staff. What I think would be a much more compelling report would be, and I'd asked this before, if there's a way that you could take this and then make a list of everything that has been added since then. If you did that, I think the public and the Board of Supervisors would see that, my God, they've lost staff, yet they've increased the responsibilities. Now you got the fair. You know, there's a lot of things that have that can update this report. I think just by a simple list of here's the parks that have been built, here's the, you know, the other athlete. We got disc golf now. We've got, you know, just a big long list, and I think you have that, don't you? In pretty much. Because, you know, here I am making this point, the fact that it's a wonder you're getting anything done, all this stuff that's been added, and you've been losing staff, and I'm asking, can you do this? But I'm thinking the report would be much more relevant and compelling if you could do that.
You know, I think you make a really good point. There are a lot of references towards the recession, and I guess when you talk about a recession, you sort of assume that everything kind of comes to a halt, and you know, you kind of go through a little state of hibernation. And you make a really good point, Donna, that even through that period of time from 2008 up to the present, there were still a lot of projects being completed. And we can certainly put that together and add that as an addendum to the report and bring it back. I think your phrase that it would make a more compelling report is probably very accurate.
Thank you.
Any other comments? So what, I guess my request, would it be actually really a motion? I'd like maybe if you could just kind of review and kind of have more of the list and maybe less of the kind of the explanation of what the catalyst was. It is kind of what it is kind of thing. And then just maybe bring it back for March.
We will do that.
And no, but good work. It's obviously there's a lot of details there, and so I think a lot of it's there. Just look forward to maybe more kind of just a kind of itemized list.
No, and that's fine. No, that's why I wanted you guys to take a look at this. And You know, just as, so maybe you can understand my thought regarding the report as well. And I see your point. It does kind of tend to look more like a glass half empty report than a glass half full kind of report. So I think that's a very good observation, and I appreciate that insight. But the Great Recession did impact us, you know, and we lost staff, and the board has never replaced it. And so, you know, as you keep adding facilities like disc golf, and we were talking about Treadway Park came online. We took over Treadway Park during that. We had Carson River Park expansion happen during that period of time. Morgan Mill Road River Access Area happened during that period of time. And now we have the fair. So, you know, Donna, you're right.
Two parks, John Jenkins.
And, yeah, John Mankins, we identify those in the report.
Yeah.
But there are some other things that we were talking about later. So those are the kind of things that, you know, so it's kind of that balance, and we'll see if we can strike a little better balance, because it is important, I think, to tell the downside of the story as part of telling the upside of the story, which is staff has been able to absorb these other projects and to still continue to do things. And we're getting the MAC now, you know, with no additional staff at this point. So the MAC is coming online. It's a big building, and I believe, Roger, you're putting in some requests for additional staff, but there's no guarantee we're going to get it with the budget situation that it is, so.
And maybe another thought would be to list some of the things that you've been trying to do that you can't get to, such as the master plan for Centennial Park. You know, that's kind of, you know, we've talked about the kind of, I don't know, pollywog we're in. I can't think of a word for it, but the fact that, I mean, I want to make improvements in that park, but you want to have a master plan. Or you want to have a master plan and make improvements. You know, whatever, it's back and forth. You have opportunities to make improvements in that park, but you want to have the master plan. So there's things like that that you might know of too, Vern, that you could add. And it's simply a matter of, you know, availability of staff.
And maybe some of the key also maintenance items that we haven't been able to get to as well. I think, you know, I've mentioned this, like, because it's kind of a pet peeve of mine, but to have a bunch of new projects but not be able to afford to pay for the maintenance, just aspects of the stuff that you do have already. So I think that is an important aspect of it. And I guess maybe, you know, I guess my recommendation wouldn't have been to completely lose the sentiment of the recession, but maybe just kind of as a summary, talk about that maybe that led to part of the slow movement in some of the projects, but not necessarily have to have it highlighted in every single project that, you know, of each chapter, I guess.
I do want to point out, though, that in putting this report together, when Vern assembled the report, he really relied on the minutes of the meetings and really tried to capture the comments that you group as a board offered. And so some of the things we're talking about now, we really didn't talk about during those discussions to a lot of detail. So we can certainly add those, but I think what he included in his report really accurately reflects the discussions that we had while we were reviewing the master plan.
Yeah, it does.
Roger, I'm glad you said that, because I was going to mention that, we want to be careful we don't stray away from the work that was done here. And I think following the minutes was the right thing to do. And Vern, I think you did a great job summarizing all of this stuff. And, you know, it's a tough thing to summarize. It was tough to grasp when we were doing it, you know, because you get into that whole, let's change the master plan and let's do this, and you just can't, you know, you got to be careful. You can't just jump in and change a master plan. So I think this was, you know, a good note-taking, brainstorming exercise that I thought you captured pretty well.
All right, any other comments? Any public comments? All right.
If it's your pleasure, we will kind of do some tweaking on this and bring it back in March.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you. Item 3C is a discussion only regarding the overall condition of both paved paths and unpaved paths and trails maintained by Carson City Parks and Recreation Department. And this is Scott Fair. Welcome.
Along with Vern. Thank you. For the record, Scott Fehrenbrick, Deputy Director. First off, I'd like to talk a little bit about where we have some of our paved and unpaved trails. Some of the most prominent paved trails would include the Linear Park Trail, which is from Roop over by Governor's Field to the Moffett property. We have the V&T Trail, which is a real popular trail on the west side. That's basically from Murphy Drive to Ash Canyon Road. We've got the NDOT Freeway multi-purpose paths which are adjacent to the Carson City Freeway. And of course, we have the Long Ranch Estates paths, which are within the Long Ranch subdivision. Some of the more used and popular unpaved trails would be the Riverview Wetlands Trails, which are at the east end of 5th Street along the river, and the trailhead for the Riverview Trails is the Korean War Veterans Memorial Park. We have the Empire Ranch Trails, which encompasses and encircles the Empire Ranch Golf Course, and we have the Mexican Ditch Trail, which is in East Carson City along the Mexican Ditch. We currently maintain all of our trails, whether they're paved or unpaved, at a level 1 in the master plan, and you have that attachment in your packet. It doesn't give a lot of detail, but it does basically outline the basic services that we provide. We have a level 1 and a level 2, and we've been able to maintain at a level 1, which is a good thing. All of our trails are dog-friendly trails. We allow dogs to be off-leash but under the control of their owner on all of our trails. The only exception would be a stretch of trail that we have in the Riverview Wetlands where we have nesting birds, and we do require dogs to be on leash during that one particular stretch of trail, but the rest of them are all off-leash and dog-friendly. We have mutt mitt stations and regulatory signage installed at all of our trails, whether they're paved or unpaved. And we do, with our park ranger and with staff, we enforce all of the park policies and rules within those jurisdictions, within those trails. We have a lot of deferred maintenance, as I'm sure the commission well knows, on some of our trails, particularly the paved trails. We don't have a lot of deferred maintenance on the unpaved trails. We've been able to keep up with those pretty well, but on the paved trails, we should be on a good regular fog sealing program. We should be on a good crack sealing program. A lot of the trails, like for instance at Long Ranch Estates, which Don and some others know, we need to do some overlaying. We could use a 1-inch or a 2-inch overlay on some of those trails because they're so bad. That's the same with city streets, that's the same with city parking lots, and unfortunately trails, take the back burner on a lot of those things. So that's the one thing that isn't really under our control. We put in budget requests every year, to do some maintenance to these trails, but it just seems to fall by the wayside. So that's the one thing that I hope in future years we address, because it's going to continue to be a big problem. I think as far as the unpaved trails go, we do a good job. And we'll look at some slides here pretty soon and show some of the weed control and some of the measures that we take to take care of these unpaved trails. We do snow removal on all paved trails. We do not perform snow removal operations on the unpaved trails, but within 24 hours on all paved trails, we do snow removal. One of the main reasons for this is because these paved trails are not only for recreational use, but they're a major transportation mode for a lot of folks. A lot of folks that don't have vehicles, a lot of folks on bicycles, and especially a lot of school-aged children that use these trails and depend on these trails to get to and from school. So if we could look at a few pictures on the slides, is that all of them?
That's all
okay,
of them.
that's all of them. The one on the left is Riverview Park, and as you can see, this is pretty much a before picture, early spring. What happens is the sagebrush grows and narrows the trail, so we have to get in there mechanically and widen out those trails. And so you can see we've got the wider part of the trail at the bottom, and then as you go further up the slide, and then you've got we do go in every spring and take care of that. We do that on all of our unpaved trails. We make sure that we have an adequate width and an adequate corridor with that. And if you look over to the top right, we have, that's Emerson Street, Carson City Freeway, landscaping and trail. And we do the herbicide applications to keep things clear. You can see we have, it's fairly weed-free in front of the landscaping, in front of the signage, in front of the art features. And you can't see it very well because it's in the shadow, but we have the park bench there, and it's virtually weed-free around that park bench too. So we go out several times a year with herbicide applications. We do the pre-emergent herbicide applications, which we'll do this month. We go out early, like in February, and do the pre-emergent, which kills any seeds from germinating that might be getting ready to go up, go up and germinate out of the ground. Then we follow up with a post-emergent probably in April, and then we continue that throughout the season. That's one of our newer trails as far as pavement goes, so we're in pretty good shape there. But we do have to go through there periodically and sweep those trails. We have a Bobcat machine that has a broom attachment, and we go through and sweep those periodically. At the one on the bottom right is the NDOT trail, which also is along the freeway. That particular one is in front of Home Depot. And as you can see by the shoulder, it's virtually weed-free, and we try and keep up with that and try and keep a clean, maintained shoulder on all of our paved trails. So whether it's a paved trail, whether it's an unpaved trail, we try and keep them as weed-free as we possibly can. On the last agenda item, we talked about being short on staff and adding facilities. I'm proud to say that even with the shortage of manpower and some of the maintenance funding that we could use that we don't have, I think we do a pretty good job overall maintaining our trails. And we do that because it's an important part of our park system, and we do get a lot of feedback from the citizens. If we don't do a good job, we hear about it. And that shows that the people are out there using them. And as you can see, anytime when the weather's halfway decent, and even with inclement weather, you see people out there using the trails all the time. So I think I've pretty well covered it, but I'd be happy to answer any questions the commission might have.
Commissioner Curtis.
Certainly. So Scott, you were saying in the beginning that, you foresee problems, especially with maybe the paved trails. So are we getting to a point where it's more than we can handle, or for the foreseeable future, are we able to keep up with everything?
I think we can handle the maintenance part of it. What we really can't handle is the deferred capital maintenance that needs to be done on those trails. I mean, we've got a lot, we address the most severe cases. This last year, we went in and filled in the cracks. Public Works, with their assistance, we went out and filled in all the cracks on the linear park path, because it became a safety issue because we had 1-inch, 2-inch wide cracks throughout that whole thing. So now that's all crack sealed, but we have a lot of other paved paths. One of the worst that we have is probably an interior park path, which is at Roscoe Park. It's horrible. I mean, it's almost decimated. Roger and I were talking about it the other day, and since I've been here in 1994, I've been asking for funding to replace that path, and it just, it's never been the highest priority, and it's just because we have so many other needs in the city. But it's something, that's a good example of a path that if we don't do something pretty soon, you might as well just take it out. The Long Ranch paths are probably one of the worst paths that we have as far as, sites go. Late 90s, I think, was when that was installed, most of it. And it's in serious need of some maintenance. And we haven't done too much. I think we've done maybe 1 or 2 fog sealings on that path throughout the whole life of that path system. So we really do need to get that message out that, we're in dire straits if we don't get some maintenance on those asphalt paths pretty soon. And we're trying to go to concrete paths whenever we can, just for that very reason, so that there's a lot less maintenance down the road if we go to a concrete path. But we do have a lot of asphalt paths that we still have to take care of.
So if I may, so what do we do with this? for example, the Board of Supervisors on Thursday, they have a goals-setting session, and I don't know exactly what that all entails, but if they're going to start prioritizing, I know they're talking about road repairs and infrastructure. Seems like this ought to be in front of them, too. Is it going to be, do you know?
Well, on Thursday, after the Board of Supervisors meeting, staff and the Board of Supervisors will be conducting a strategic planning session. And that's going to be at a pretty high level, the old saying at 30,000 feet kind of level. And probably won't get into a lot of details, that such as Scott just gave you, but a lot of that's going to be included in budget discussions as well. But it'll set the framework for that. And, we can certainly bring up that the Park and Recreation Commission is concerned about the deferred maintenance on our trails too. It fits under a lot of different categories: quality of life and sustainable infrastructure, and those type of categories that they're going to be talking about.
So, for example, maybe there could be a list of, these trails and what the cost is, and they could start developing a over the years type of thing. Roscoe maybe being number one. Or maybe it'll fit in there with a new police car or something like that, but I think it's important to try to get it to their attention somehow.
Yeah.
How much would it be, for example, to put concrete in the Roscoe Trail, do you know? I mean, offhand, what we're talking about?
I think the last time we put a number to it, it was around $30,000 to do everything.
So see, as things go, I don't think that this is, a major issue, or, I mean, we're talking about a whole lot of people being affected by $30,000 fix. And it seems to me that if we could start, a system where each year, it's just like, replacing the swings and, the 50,000 you get each year for that kind of thing. Maybe you could get 50,000 each year to.
And we haven't gotten that 50,000 for many years. Yeah, we haven't, not.
We used to get an annual funding of 50,000 for playground equipment, and I think we also got an annual funding for tennis court, maintenance and that type of thing. That all went out about 2008. And you're right. I mean, $30,000 is really a paltry sum in a lot of ways, but Scott and I can tell you that we have made requests for as little as $3,000 here in the last year or so, or $3,500 that wasn't approved. I mean, the city budget's still very tight. But, that's a good application of having concrete in a park like Roscoe, because one of the things that really is hard on these asphalt paths are moisture, and you get irrigation systems that overspray in the paths, and it tends to deteriorate the asphalt where concrete holds up better.
We did an audit of paths and sidewalks. The Parks and Recreation Department did, and it's part of our CIP, our capital improvement program. And it came to just under $500,000, and that's just deferred maintenance on concrete and asphalt. So, I think the capital improvement requests that the city had last budget year were close to $50 million. So we're competing with a lot of needs in the city. And so, we got roofs that need to be replaced. We have a lot of infrastructure citywide that needs to be replaced. Vehicles, equipment. I mean, like we had just said, we got a lot of playground equipment that needs to be replaced too. So all that stuff needs to be addressed. And these paths, not to get off the subject, but these paths and trails, they compete with all that money. And so sometimes it just doesn't shake out.
Well, but I mean, and I'm not going to try to decide whether it's more important to have a newer police car than a paved path, but they're not going to go and replace the fleet for the sheriff either. They can't go and buy all those cars. And so maybe, just if we're going to start getting little nibbles and drabs coming in and excess revenue, maybe we could start looking at some way of dealing with this issue.
Roger, I had a question. the capital improvement project, well, we just reviewed it last month, and none, like that kind of stuff wasn't on there. Is there a reason for that? Is that a different budget or what?
Well, that was part of what Scott referred to as the just under $500,000. It's about a 400, excuse me, about a $400,000 item. And we didn't even bring that forward at this point because we knew there was no chance of it being funded.
Okay.
We've gone through the first kind of, I guess, discussion on the capital improvement budget. And I think there is, we're looking at a scenario that there may be $500,000 citywide available.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, again, it's very competitive to try to get anything.
Commissioner Kiever.
Yeah, Scott, I had a question. When we're discussing concrete for the paths, have we discussed the pros and cons of impervious concrete? Because I know it's porous and the water would go through it, but maybe its life isn't as long. Have we discussed that or even thought about it?
We've looked at some of them. We haven't, we haven't done a lot of crunching of the numbers on some of it. We've looked at a lot of those, especially in areas where we're going to have vehicular traffic on those paths. A lot of the parks where we have special event venues, we've looked at some of that.
Okay, so
And-
alternative materials.
Yeah, we're always looking at that, the geotech type stuff too.
One of the areas we've been looking at is, and we've been using it, are the decomposed granite trails, which are pervious, and they, sometimes they're a good option. Sometimes they don't hold up as well in a real high trafficked area of a park, but, it's always an option to look at.
Thank you. Is there any other questions? Any public comments or questions? All right. Thank you, Scott.
Thanks, Scott.
Thank you.
3D is a discussion regarding the east and west transmission water line project through Mills Park. And Rick Cooley and Scott Fehrenbrook.
I'll go ahead and start this off, and with me is Rick Cooley, who's the construction manager for Carson City, and he works for the Public Works Department. Talking about the water line that began in Mills Park from Solomon Road. It came into the park on January 26th of this year. It's a 24-inch water transmission line, and Rick can give you more technical information on that, I'm sure, than I can. The park staff assisted Public Works with all of the locations of the underground utilities within the park. We have language in the contract with the contractor, which is, the oversight is by Public Works, by Rick, and by Gary, to make sure that anything that is impacted in the park from this project is rehabilitated before the contractor can leave the job. So we're going to make sure that after they go through and decimate the park the way they are, that we're keeping them at least within a zone that they can work in. They can't just drive all over the park. They got to stay within a particular construction zone, and that construction zone, which is the route of the pipeline, will be rehabilitated. By that I mean, resodded and the whole bit, so it will hopefully be like new by the time that they're done and accepted by the city. The this project will probably, I'm not going to get into the timeline too much. I'll let Rick do that, but we're fortunate that this project is taking place during this time of the year, because we were really dreading the fact that if it did happen during the season when the park is in heavy use with all the events and the irrigation that we'd have to deal with, it would be a real problematic for us. So it's fortunate that we're doing this project in January and February instead of sometime in the spring or the summer or the fall. So with that, I'll turn it over to Rick, and he can go over a little bit more detail on the project.
For the record, Rick Cooley, Public Works. Like Scott said, the first thing we did to get into the park was we did the work out on Solomon to ease the impact on the high school as much as we could. Now that we're in the park, we're about 1,300 foot into a 3,700 foot run of pipe. So we're actually moving along. As of into work today, we got to the War Memorial. So we're actually cruising right along. We had a little hiccup, about 4-day delay, not to the project, not going to cost anything, but we ran into some materials there in the Sealy Loop under the paved area there that it turned into soup once we put water to it. So it took us, instead of a day, it took us 4 days there, but we're actually picking up time now that we're getting shallower and coming through the park. The plan is, originally the plan was to be hopefully in the parking lot, hit the parking lot area of the Aquatic Center, Community Center by Monday next week. It'll probably be later next week. We're meeting with all staff Thursday to go over events and how we're going to do that and progressing with the concrete work and asphalt work and the pipeline that we got to do. We got several phases we got to do. So the plan right now is to finish all the pipeline work by the end of February, by the end of this month, if everything goes right. Then we're also replacing a lot of asphalt. The whole Oxby Loop, the outbound portion of the Sealy Loop, the Oxby Loop all the way to Williams and all the way out to Roop. And so that, weather depending, well, if it's like it is now, we'll be able to do it in March. If winter actually arrives in March, we might have to pull off for a month and then come back and repave in April when the weather turns better. But that's the plan right now. So I'll entertain any questions you guys have. I'm sure you guys got a few.
It's been a little while, but I remember we had, you guys showed us maps and everything, kind of the proposed route, but I don't recall where are you pulling water off that line, or is it just mainly just getting it through the park, and then is it going to service like the Aquatic Center or any of that?
No, this is primarily a transmission line. So this is part of the master plan of bringing water from Minden. So the whole purpose of it being a transmission main is we're trying to get water to the west side of town. Now, in between various strategic locations, we're tying into existing water mains. Like the first phase that came to Robinson and Solomon, we tied into the 8-inch main in Solomon. This phase, we're going to go across, we're going to tie into the main that's in Roop. So each major zone we tie into, we will tie into those zones and give us an extra source of blending water is what it's going to do. But the main purpose of taking 24 inches of water is to get us up to Quill, up to that treatment facility.
Any other questions?
Rick, I was just going to say, I take my daughter to the high school every day, and I was happy you guys, I mean, it was certainly, there was traffic, but I was happy you guys got through there as quick as you did.
It turned out well, and the sheriff's department helped quite a bit.
Right.
We had man-to-man coverage almost to the mornings.
How much pipe are you laying per day with the shoring?
Right now, we're only we did 130 foot today. We did 178 foot yesterday, so it kind of varies. The initial plan was to do at least 200 foot a day. So we're close, and we're picking up steam, but we got to cross the creek. We're actually cutting through the creek. Right. As you guys noticed, through the park, there's no joints in the pipe. And so with those long ropes of pipe that we fuse together, it's a lot of cutting open trench. Hopefully it stays together and rolling that pipe in. So it changes things as we go. But as long as the material stays as it is now, we should be all right.
All right. Any other questions, comments? Public comments? All right. Well, thank you. Hopefully, I hope that you get delayed. I hope we get a big snowstorm and you guys are gonna have to sit. But yeah.
Yeah, we might be able to keep some water in the pipe.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. All right, staff updates. 4A, update on the BMX track lighting project with Vern.
Yep, I'd like to announce that the project is complete. Rick had been masterful through some of the site issues that we had getting it to work, so I wanted to thank Rick publicly for that effort. The project is done. The project construction costs totaled out at $193,480.79. The Land and Water Conservation Fund grant we got for that project is going to cover $122,721 of that particular construction cost. So we're really excited to have had that partnership with the Nevada State Parks and getting that Land and Water Conservation Fund grant for this project. We're done. They light up. We were out there middle of, what was it? When did we do the lighting, Rick, out there?
First week in December.
First week in December. We actually were out there, and So this project had a grant deadline that we were closing in on real fast. It was, the grant had to be completed by, or the project had to be completed by December 31st of 2014, and we probably got a little closer than we needed to, but we got there and we got it done. So the BMX folk have this great lighting system for them. It's well lit, great foot candles throughout the track, and it'll be, I think, a great asset for them as they continue to develop their program out there. So, any questions?
Commissioner Curtis.
Yeah, just hopefully the word gets out, because it's just another thing to bring people here to Carson City, to let them know that we have this facility. As I recall, people were coming from Tahoe and other places because they liked our facility, and so hopefully they can do for tourism as some of the other fields and things we've got here.
Any other comments? Public comments? All right. 4B.
The next project is John D. Winter Centennial Park. This project was sorely needed up at the sports complex. We had the ability to park people around the big loop, but if somebody was handicapped, there was just no way, or physically challenged, there was no way to get them safely into the complex. So this was huge for us to meet ADA requirements. And so in the lower screen, we have a brand-new parking lot specifically for folks who need that assist. The slide on the right shows our new asphalt road into the complex. This is a dual-purpose facility. It allows not only access for pedestrians, but we can bring in large trucks on it, you know, for the servicing of the snack bar. And then we were also able to, with Rick's help, I want to acknowledge Rick on this as well, and Scott, we were really close. Unfortunately, we just didn't quite have the funds to do the necessary concrete work on the inside of the project. But Rick working with the contractor, and then Scott using some of his guys with a city backhoe, we were able to work a deal that actually got us all some of the dirt areas in the complex underneath the picnic shelter shade structure to be able to be concreted. So Rick, I want to thank you. You worked real hard to put that together with the contractor, and then Scott, you know, you and your guys were up there doing a bunch of work for us as well. So with that, the project all in all became $115,498.50 project. Again, we had a land and water conservation grant that offset that construction cost, $75,750. So we're really excited about having this project ready for the next baseball season, for not only the recreation division, but also for the tournaments that are coming to town. This is one of, as the commission knows, this is a very strong economic driver for the city. Upper Centennial is, and it's just nice to be able to show improvements up there, that we care about the facility and we want to continue to improve it and bring our tournaments back. So, Rick, thanks again. Did a great job for us. Any questions?
No, I was actually up there a few weeks ago, and you guys must have just been finishing up because it's all done. So, yeah, good job. Looks good.
Yeah, that was one of the concerns that we had. We were getting to the point, we were bidding it real late in the fall, and if we had 5 feet of snow this winter, we wouldn't be here. So this was, you know, if there is a silver lining to not having a whole lot of snow, this was nice to be able to get this project done and completed and ready for the tournaments and the recreation division's programs next spring.
All right, any other comments? Public comments? Okay. All right, moving on to 4C. So it's an update on the condition of Fuji Park dog, or the dog park.
Again, Scott Fahrenbrick, Deputy Director. If you look on the screen there to the right, you see the small dog area.
Yeah.
And to the left, that is the large dog area of the park. And if you look there, this agenda item is about the overall condition of the dog park. And I will say, in my opinion, that the dog park is in very good condition as far as being well-maintained. The fence lines are clean, it's virtually weed-free, it's maintained as it's designed. It's a decomposed granite surface. Of course, there's going to be a lot of people that aren't happy just because it's a decomposed granite surface and maybe they want a grass surface. But as this dog park was designed, it's being maintained very well. We went in this fall and closed the dog park for a week and improved some of the drainage in the park. One of the problems was around the hydrants. We have a hydrant in each section, the large dog section and the small dog section. And what would happen would people would leave on the hydrants too long and we'd get a big mucky pooly mess in there. And so what we did was we installed some French drains in there and I think we took care of that problem. One of the nice things that we did for the dog park was during the last Nevada Fair, we installed some wash racks just to the east of the dog park, and we leave those wash racks charged up. And what people can do if they want to, they can wash their dog with those livestock wash racks. And so we've had quite a few people use those, and we've left some hoses out for the people that use the dog park. They can go over, and I've seen quite a few people out there washing their dogs, you know, using our wash rack out there, which is pretty neat. So we have one tree that's missing. You can see it on the right slide. We have a tree that's missing out of the tree well there. And we've lost a few trees over the years just because it's kind of a harsh environment out there, but we do have drip irrigation to those trees. And we're waiting until we have spring, you know, when we can fire up the irrigation system again, and then we'll replace that one tree. But overall, I think the dog park's in good shape. If you look in your packet, there's an FYI towards the back of your packet. I think it's at the very back of your packet. When I had heard that, you know, possibly there's some people that may not get the word as far as who to talk to as far as problems at the dog park, I had that posted on the bulletin board at the dog park. We posted it not this last Monday, but the Monday before, and I haven't gotten any calls. But I can honestly say over this past year, I've maybe gotten a couple of calls about the dog park. I think both calls were about the nuisance water around the hydrant. I have gotten a few complaints, I'll be honest, in the past year about the fact that why can't we be on the grass at Fuji Park? And that's a policy decision that really has nothing to do with the condition of the dog park or the overall maintenance of the dog park. That's strictly a policy decision of our department. So with that, I'd entertain any questions the commission might have.
Commissioner Curtis.
Of course. No, I think it's working pretty well too. I guess, you know, when you got ice out there, you got ice out there. You know, maybe they enjoy skating a little bit, but I was out there one time and it was kind of messy. It had been after some rain, but unfortunately this year we haven't had to deal with that very much. There are people though that are still going across, right across, over to the grass with their little, it seems like people, well, I shouldn't say that, but the ones I saw were littler dogs. And I don't know why, but they're taking them over there. And I went over there one time and reminded them that they're supposed to be in the dog park.
That is allowed on leash in the grass.
Yes, on leash,
Yeah.
but
Oh, they're taking them off leash?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think they figure because they're little, that, you know, oh, they're not running their right for it, you know. I don't know what they're figuring. But anyway, very glad to see it. One of the questions I had, though, is in terms of the water fountains. They're all shut off right now. Is that correct? Even at Long Ranch Park? And I thought those were supposed to be...
That's correct. The reason they're shut off is because they come off the irrigation system. And what we do is we blow out the irrigation systems with compressed air in the fall so that they don't freeze. So if we don't have a charged irrigation system, we can't run our hydrants, our frost-free hydrants. So it's
Okay, because I thought some of the people at Long Ranch were saying, oh, they're supposed to be
no, and
able to
I
take
believe
the cold.
we did have a sign. I don't know if it's still there, but we did have a sign on the hydrant at Long Ranch that says it's off for the season. And you know, I've talked to some of the users out there, like Tom Mix and Stacy, Geomi, and some of those, they're aware. I mean, I've explained to them that, yeah, when we winterize the system in the wintertime, we can't have it on. So once we charge up the systems in the spring, these will come back on as well as the ones at Long Ranch. The one at Long Ranch, yeah.
All right, well, just a real quick comment. Eventually, I would like to see us try to get together some of the people that were involved with putting this park together, just to see what their interests are in terms of, there is some money left in Parks for Paws, and I think a decision needs to be made in terms of what's going to be done with it, and I don't feel right just arbitrarily making a decision. I wasn't even an officer in the 501c3 when we kind of stopped as a group. So maybe if I can get some help eventually, might want to try to call a meeting or something like that, just to see what people want to do. So, thank you for the update, though, and the fact that you've had such few complaints, you know, I have nothing else to say.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments?
Roger, do you find with the DG, I mean, this has been DG, but does it give you greater issues with the trees? You have to increase your watering, or does it minimize the trees you propose for areas like that? You know, does the DG dry them out a little quicker, or has that been a problem for you guys?
You know, I think it's a little harsher of an environment just because the grass has a cooling effect on the trees. So it's a little bit harsher, but we have a good area around those trees. We've got some pretty big tree well areas, and that's why we tried to enclose we did enclose all those trees with the split rail fence, and we've got mulch in there, and we've got good topsoil within those tree environments. So we do a pretty good job as far as keeping them healthy and thriving. But yeah, it's a little tougher than it would be in a turf park. Yeah.
Any other questions? Customer, public comments? Yeah, it's like one and the same. All right, well, thank you. 4D, update on Carson City's freeway multi-use path property closing. Ooh,
Yeah, right.
with the Arith family?
That's how they pronounce it.
Well, I wish Ann
Pardon?
Bollinger was here, because I think she's the only one in our department that can pronounce their last name correctly. Juan used to be able to do it, but of course he's no longer with us. So.
I just say Dorothy's family. It simplifies things. Yes, let me read Ann unfortunately was not able to be here. She's at a conference this week, an open space conference, but she sent Roger and me an email, and I'll read it into the record. The picture you see, before I read it, the picture you see is the property that the city has closed on. It's a 20-foot wide strip. The fence on the right-hand side, this time I'm getting my left and rights correct, on the right-hand side of the picture is the NDOT right-of-way fence. And what we're going to be doing is putting our path right along this right-of-way fence, and so we acquired a 20-foot strip of property that goes all the way down this fence down to the service roads around the detention basins near 5th Street. Anyway, according to Ann, on Wednesday, January 28th, 2015, the city closed on 28,386 square feet, a little more than a half acre, of this particular property that we're looking at. The property itself cost the city $35,530, with $10,000 being paid by the Regional Transportation Commission and the remainder being paid by the Open Space Program. There are other associated costs, included appraisals, surveys, escrows, and title charges, also paid by the Regional Transportation Commission and Open Space. As for the project as a whole, the Public Works is working with NDOT to acquire a little extra land for some connectivity issues and on the design. Tentative construction schedule for this particular multi-use path project is 2016. So this particular is one of those missing links. It's a critical missing link for us. We were fortunate that Dorothy's family was willing to talk to us about selling the property to us if they chose not to. It would have really put a big chink in getting this north-south freeway multi-use path going. This particular missing link connects both the linear park path that is along Fifth Street to the path along East William Street and Highway 50 East, making this a great north-south connection, and will continue. Will actually start, the path project itself will actually start where the existing path ends near the Boys and Girls Club. It'll go underneath the freeway over to the east side, along Lampa Lane, and then we'll continue down along the, basically the east side of the freeway down to the service roads that go around the water quality basins. We will work with NDOT and that's the other thing we need to acknowledge publicly, is that this lineal footage that we talked about, this square footage, this 35,000, if we had not worked with NDOT and their ability to let us put our path on their service roads, that cost would have doubled, because we're talking about twice as much lineal footage if we didn't have those service roads that we're going to build our trail on. So that would have cost the city twice as much, or probably a little bit more, to do that if we were to take all the property from Dorothy's family. So anyway, we're really excited. It's been a great working relationship with her and her husband and the boys. We're just excited to, their contribution to the community. So anyway, that's kind of where we are in the grand scheme of that. Any questions?
So with it being a service road, is there really any kind of impact as far as vehicles or anything needing to be on it, or is it pretty minimal?
It's real minimal, and that's only in there. It's really not a whole lot different than our multi-use paths, like along the linear ditch. We'll sometimes occasionally send a service vehicle down it for trash pickup or other types of weed maintenance issues. That's pretty much what NDOT does. Unless they're going to be cleaning out the basin or doing some of those water quality basins or the channels, they're not in there typically. But it's really a fairly minimal impact, we believe, to the trail users.
Do you have any idea? I mean, you just have the land now. It's going to be a while before the whole layout's designed and ready to be built. Like, we're talking a couple of years, or what? Do you have any idea?
No, they're working. Public Works, Rob Fellows is the project engineer on this, and he is working on the design. They have to come along here real soon and set right-of-way, and that's what they're trying to do right now. And what that means is that because there's federal money involved, they being the project design engineers have to be able to define where this path is going and define that by the right-of-way that this path is going to need. And so they're working on that. This is a chunk that fell into place. We have a small little piece we're trying to get from NDOT right now, kind of surplus property for them. We're asking for them to give that to us, so that'll help us complete the necessary alignments that we need. So that request has been turned in to NDOT last month, and their surplus property committee is going to probably be meeting this month on it. All indications are positive, but nothing is for sure until it's for sure. So we're hopeful. NDOT has been a great partner for us up and down the freeway corridor with other requests similar to this. So we're hopeful.
Yeah, very good. Thank you. Do we have any other questions, comments? Anything from public? For the customers, anything? All right, for E, update on the Nevada Fair being assigned to the Parks and Recreation Department with Roger.
I just want to inform the Park and Recreation Commission that we have been given this assignment to take over the NV Fair. And last year it was called the NV 150 Fair, based on the sesquicentennial of Nevada. And I think many of you know that Marina Works, who was our deputy city manager, is now the director of the Carson City Senior Center. And our city manager, and I think rightly so, decided that that was probably not, an ideal project for the senior center, and who else is left but Park and Recreation. And so he assigned the project to us, and we're actually excited about the challenge. I don't think in reality it's going to be a lot different than what happened last year, because we were heavily involved in the fair last year anyways. Scott Fahrenbrook and his people, and Megan Sirocco back here and her people, and Scott Chapman, who works for Megan, had a lot of their hourly and seasonals and people working that fair. So they're heavily involved in it. The nice thing about it is Marina's still here. so, we can fall back and consult with her. And in addition to that, the consultant, Susan Taylor, who was actually the fair manager, is still under contract with the city. So we'll be working very closely with her. We're kind of in the process right now of starting to set up some planning meetings for the fair. Scott and I are working with the finance department and Daria Worth in our department to develop a budget for the fair. And we're kind of marching forward. The other kind of advantageous part of this was what was it, the Western Fair
Association, yeah.
Western Fair Association had their annual meeting in Reno this early winter. And we were able to send quite a few of city employees and city officials to that. So we were able to glean some pretty good information at a relatively low cost through that fair association. And speaking of that, our fair last year, the NV 150 fair, was given 2 awards at that Western Fair Association conference. One was an award for collaboration, collaborating with the different groups that we had helping put the fair on. And the other one was
Well, this is the first time in their association history, for 30 years, they've never had a new fair. So we won they called it, I'm not sure exactly, they couldn't really fit us into a particular category. So we got an award and we got first place, and it was for being the fair, the first time having a fair in 30 years in their organization. So it was kind of a fun little spot they kind of stuck us into, but it was first place. You always got to love first place.
Well, we didn't have a whole lot of competition, I guess, either. They haven't had a new fair in 30 years, but Susan Taylor, Susan Taylor will be actually presenting those awards at the February 19th board of Supervisors meeting to the mayor. So anyhow, we're gonna be busy, but we were busy with it last year, and we've got the bar set pretty high because that fair was pretty successful and very popular last year. So we're ready for the challenge. Any questions?
Yes.
Okay, Roger, do we have any dates tentatively set, or is that still up in the air?
No, the dates are set. Scott, they're the last week in July 30th through what, August 2nd?
Yes, just to let you know, as a volunteer last year, I know some of us volunteered, and I liked it so much, I asked if I could volunteer some more. So thank you for including me in the invite for your meetings, and I'll be happy to be there.
You really don't have a choice. We were gonna volunteer you anyway.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, you mentioned that Susan Taylor is the fair consultant. Does that mean she's not the fair manager this year?
Well, no, that's really the role she plays. She is a consultant. She's a contract. We have a contract with her. She's not a city employee, and her contract is basically to serve as a fair manager.
Okay, so she'll be doing the same role that she
She'll be
had
doing the
last
same
year.
role, right?
Okay.
As far as resources, I know last year there's quite a few things to get it going. Do you expect anything, I guess budget-wise, or anything else that you are going to need between now and then?
Well, the board did set a budget. They gave us a kind of a gross amount for the next 2 years. And what we're going to do is we're going to take those and kind of refine that into a line item budget, just like we do for any of our programs. For instance, the ice skating rink has a line item budget, has a funding amount for it, and then we break it into a line item budget. Last year was a little bit more hectic because we had some improvements that we wanted to get completed in the fair before the fair, prior to the fair. You know, a new picnic shelter over by the fairgrounds, some additional lighting in the park, the livestock wash rack that Scott referred to, and some other improvements. In fact, Public Works was actually finishing up a project on the west end of the park, and we had to do the week before. So it was pretty hectic last year. We don't anticipate that we're going to have that as many improvements to do this year as we had to do last year.
All right, any other comments? Public comments? All right, thanks, Roger. Members' announcements and requests for information. Commissioner Kieber.
Yes. Roger? I was reading this weekend the story in the paper about the trees at Fuji, and I've got a couple questions. We're going to replace those, and that'll probably be in the spring, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, and I noticed that there was a citizen who had some concerns that maybe we were cutting down trees willy-nilly. Doesn't the Shade Tree Council have a policy concerning that?
Well,
And could we refer her to that?
there's not really a policy by the, by the Shade Tree Council. We did inform the Shade Tree Council that unfortunately those two very large cottonwood trees are going to have to be removed out of Fuji Park. And that's directly related to the fair. If you,
Right.
the one really outstanding, magnificent cottonwood tree that's right in the middle of the park, in the middle of the night, about 3 o'clock in the morning, I guess, a large limb fell out of that tree. The limb is about the size of a regular tree, and landed on top of one of the vendors that was there at the fair, destroying their little vending area. And, if that would have happened during the day, it could have been a catastrophe. Scott had worked with the Public Works tree crew prior to that, and we actually had their crew out there doing some safety pruning and hazardous pruning in all the trees in the park. And even with that, we still had, that unfortunate circumstance happen. So we got with Molly, sent it to as a certified arborist, and we had her inspect the tree, and it was her recommendation that those trees should be removed. The trees are overaged, they're past their useful lifespan, unfortunately, and once those large cottonwood trees start to get some decay and rot in them, it can happen pretty quickly that, larger limbs could fall, so.
One of my suggestions would be I received the impression that the citizen was not convinced that the trees needed to come down. So I was going to say, as they're coming down, maybe if we took pictures of the rot inside and showed them to her, because when those cottonwoods go, as you say,
Excuse me, at this point, you really don't know how extensive the rot is until you take the tree down. We know that there is some rot in the main trunk of the tree because there's some large burls on the side that actually have cavities in them. But we don't know how extensive that is, but what we're really, mainly concerned about is the large limbs up above. And that's usually where they're rotting out first. Now, one of the trees is over by the dog park, and that's a tree that has the infamous owl nest in it. A good portion of the canopy, upper canopy of that tree is dead, which is really a bad sign. But we can do that. We can take some pictures. And I think, I think what you were referring to, the policy about the shade tree, was a equation of the number of trees based on the diameter of the tree that's removed, the number of trees you need to replace based on the diameter of the tree. And, we will certainly look up that's actually in our landscaping ordinance, and we'll look that up.
Just understand, I have no problem, because I understand the cottonwoods have a short life, and once they're gone, they're gone. So I just was thinking maybe there was some way we could better inform the public as to why a decision was made, so they don't think that have chainsaw will travel.
We actually, Scott put together a PSA, a public service announcement, and prior to that, probably about a month ago, wasn't it? And actually ran that in the paper, and of course we had the big article that was in the paper Sunday, I believe it was. So, yeah. So it's sometimes difficult to get the word out, but we made a good faith effort to try to get the word out that those trees are going to have to be removed.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Is there any others? Commissioner Glenn.
Yeah, I just want to let everybody know that Carson City Little League will have signups this Saturday from 8 a.m. to noon at the indoor facility at Governor's Fields. There is an early bird discount for signups this Saturday, so instead of paying the registration fee of $90, you pay the registration fee of $80. After this Saturday, you can still sign up your kids. but you will be paying the full registration fee of $90, and tryouts will begin on February 21st. And on Sunday, for anyone who's interested in coaching baseball at the Little League, we will have a coaches clinic at 2:30 p.m. At the indoor facility at Governor's Fields, and that's this Sunday.
All right. All right, Commissioner Curtis.
Yes, this is a partial city project, so I think it's okay to advertise it. Hopefully the camera will pick this up because the artwork, I think, is fantastic. This is for Cassie. It's the Carson Area Animal Services Initiative, and they're having a fundraiser March 7th at the Nugget. It's basically going to be a wine tasting. Sheriff Furlong is the MC, which makes it real interesting right there. And
Sounds like
he's going to be bringing his canines. So there will be canines there if you want your picture taken with one of the police dogs. It's $35, and right now I have some tickets if anybody wants to. For the next few days, I'll have tickets, and then I have to turn them in. But they're easy to get. If you just get this information or go to, www.friendsofcassie.org. Thank you.
All right. I just had one, Roger, I know it's been probably about a year. We talked about potentially the VNT getting extended all the way through to have an access point through Lakeview. Don't know if do you recall that? But do you, maybe for next meeting or something, is that something you could have an update or something?
We certainly can. You're talking about the VNT Trail on the west side of town.
Exactly,
Yes, and we are currently, that's an open space project, but we'd be happy to give you an update on that. We have Mark Kimbrough working under contract with us, trying to secure some easements and right-of-ways on that project. There's been some progress made, not at the point yet where we're, at the point where we can actually do some trail improvements or building trails, but we can certainly report on that to you.
Okay, or there's no need if, until, I guess, something happens, but it hasn't really, hasn't been forgotten about, I guess, it's actually still moving along.
No, but it's still in the works, and, and that trail is, the plan is that trail will go all the way from the Coombs Canyon Road and, on the old V&T bed, as you can see that, the trail up there, up behind the Nevada, or the Eagle Valley Children's Home, and then kind of up that draw and eventually connect with Lakeview, and then connect back down to the Carson Tahoe Hospital with their trail system. So as that project progresses and there's significant information to give you, we'll update you on it.
All right, any other comments? All right, how about Commissioner Cassiopo with the school board liaison?
Not much to report, but I just wanted to make you aware. The seniors have to do a senior project every year, and one of the seniors this year has been asked to look at a stadium record board at the track and field facility. And I just thought that was an interesting project, and he's realizing what goes into these kinds of things. It's an endeavor, and I think he's starting to get some sweat beads on his forehead trying to get it done. But the idea there is to put a monument up to recognize Carson High athletes and their accomplishments, records for, say, the 400, the 800, those kinds of things. And so it's a neat project. He's gonna meet with Mark Kornick and Dave Timmons tomorrow to get some input from them, and I told him I'd meet with him afterwards, and we'd talk about what we can provide for him to help him through permitting and things like that. So it'd be something to see when it's done. It'll be kind of a nice addition.
All right, thank you. Future agenda items.
Well, I will add that item we talked about, the V&T Trail, I'll add that to the future agenda items as well.
Okay, that sounds good. Roger, I'd also be fine if you want to do it as appropriate as well, like if you don't have any really news for.
Yeah, we'll just put it under, schedule.
Sure.
I just had a question for Roger.
Sure.
Roger, just back to the MAC, is that, as construction goes underway, as far as budgeting and whatnot, does that come back to us just for, keep us updated?
Oh, yeah.
Or are we kind of out of it at that point?
Oh, no, you know, we'll be reporting periodically back to you as progress occurs. Yeah, we'll keep you informed of how the project's going.
Is that something also, were we gonna get kind of a final, I guess, draft as far as the plans and everything? Or is it, it's been a little while, but since the last copy we had?
You know, we can, I'm sure we can give you some of the, we don't want to give you the construction drawing type plans, but we can give you some of the architectural
Just the
plans, yeah.
concept stuff?
Sure.
Okay. Is there any other things we want to add to the?
No, I just
Future.
had a question.
Okay.
Roger, we've closed the Arlington Ice Rink for this season, haven't we? Or is that coming up?
It's scheduled to close on February 8th.
Okay.
Is that still right, Megan?
Okay, just was wondering. Okay, thank you.
That's this Sunday?
And I think that, that's, what, it'll be March when you bring your, kind of the final report on that? Okay. All right, anything else you want to do in the future? All right. Any public comments? Does the public have anything they want to bring forward? No? All right, for possible action on adjournment.
So moved.
Any second?